Good Saturday afternoon, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving you the latest on a severe thunderstorm warning impacting areas around Crescent Lake. So we're talking about areas in and around Flagler and Putnam counties until about 4:30 this afternoon on this Memorial Day weekend, when I know a lot of folks may be in and around the water. We have some dangerous lightning here. We have some hail potential and wind potential from this pop-up storm. So this isn't exactly a great situation here as the rain chances and the storm chances have kind of been going on up on us here toward the weekend. We were retweeting that SBC Outlook there, telling you some of the latest with the threat kind of creeping north. Did that early this morning there, and we had a threat creeping in from the west, and I know tomorrow we have a threat over more of an area, and we're going to be watching a national threat there toward Oklahoma's weather day. So a lot starting to develop here, unfortunately. When folks may not be tuning into the weather here, things are starting to escalate just a little bit more than we were kind of thinking. You know, it's toward the summertime, so you can get pop-up activity, and that's not going to be overwhelming, but it can still be very dangerous with the rain chances going up a little bit higher than first thought here for your Saturday. So we really need to be weather aware right now in the Crescent City, Crescent Lake area. I know, as I'll take the radar off, you know, not all of it, but a lot of it there is in that vicinity. As we're tracking things with that dangerous lightning, you know, and heavy rainfall. I mean, there's the lake, and you can see, you know, there's a lightning strike right there over the lake. So hopefully there was not, you know, any boaters there getting struck or anything like that. Hopefully folks were able to get inside there, you know, in a timely manner. But this is, you know, what we worry about here is pretty much stationary. We don't know which way it's going to move, you know, as we look ahead into the timeline in the short term. As we're tracking this, we're not really seeing much in the way of movement with this. So, you know, this is the only one in our area. However, you know, you don't see too much to the north. It's dark, 95 degrees. It's, you know, toasty out there, but no warnings, not a marginal risk like this one. You know, this storm here is right on the edge of the marginal risk, really just outside of it, toward areas of Putnam and Flagler. But then as we look toward the north here, and you see some of this cooler temperature toward the coast, you know, getting some cool air with the boundary coming on in. But you see another marginal risk toward the north and west. But then as we get further south, there are numerous severe thunderstorm warnings in east central Florida this afternoon. Now they're seeing, you know, a lot of those pop-up storms turn severe in a hurry. It's so warm. We have enough of the moisture around to cause some problems now. You know, this is probably really impacting plans toward I-95 there around Rockledge and just to the west of Rockledge. They're seeing that. Another storm southwest of Palm Bay, northeast of Kenansville. Then we have this storm here south of Sebastian. You know, hail, inside hail been reported there around Vero Lake Estates. So, you know, not exactly what you want to see. There's even another severe storm down towards southwest Florida between Cape Coral and LaBelle. So not exactly what you want to see on a holiday weekend here. I know it's something that's moving toward our area a little bit more now with that risk kind of creeping north a bit. This is really just outside of the formal risk for this time of year. If you've been around here long enough, you know a lot of times you don't even have risk, and you'll have just tons of severe storms later on toward the summer. So you just have to stay weather aware here as you're tracking things this afternoon. Continuing to give you guys the latest. I see they just updated some information here. They just updated some information on the warning. They've canceled Putnam, but they're continuing Flagler now. So let's see what they're saying. The office in Jackson, I know they're talking about hail damage to vehicles could occur, and wind damage could occur to roof, side, and trees. And of course, you know, the lake area, I mean, it's very dangerous to be out on a lake when there's lightning around. You saw at least that one strike was very obvious right there on the lake. And I'll back it up. I mean, there's probably been more of that as we'll kind of go here. I see another one from earlier. Yeah, you just see them all around that lake here the last little bit. But this storm has turned severe. But it looks like they've clipped some of the lake out of this now. But not all of it. Not all of it here. It's still nearly stationary. It's pretty rural areas, you know, as we're looking. But again, that lake region here, you know, you see some of the waterways. We still have this dangerous weather in the vicinity. not what you want to see, obviously. It does seem like it's drifting a little bit east, which would be helping that area as we're down with it. I mean, at this time of year, though, you just gotta kind of, when you don't have, necessarily maybe a warning in play, even, you just gotta be aware of the weather. I mean, when you see that lightning, in the distance, and don't hear that thunder rumble, you gotta get inside because, I don't look, we haven't tied that up too much yet. We always talk about it about this time of year and have to talk it up, but, it's a situation, stuff will just develop. I mean, you don't have to have a warning for it to be a tragedy with lightning or something like that. Not that we've heard anything yet, but, being a holiday weekend, this is just a reminder. It's going to be worse tomorrow. There's going to be a lot more covered storms now for tomorrow. This is just kind of the appetizer, quite honestly, for what's going to be taking place. A lot more pop-up storms tomorrow. On that Sunday here, again, the chances of rain are going up. Just not that high covered in our area. I mean, that's the only real, we have this up here around, east of Pomona Park. Whenever thunder roars go indoors, you got to watch out there. As we're looking on the north side of Crescent Lake as well. There's not even a warning or advisory, not that there needs to be. There doesn't. It's just lightning. That's just how it works. I mean, whenever thunder roars, you need to go indoors here. So, it's something that you just have to learn as a Floridian here, really. I mean, it happened in other states too, but especially here, stuff will just pop up. And the wind damage didn't look overwhelming with this. There has been some hail potential, that's shown up here. It's not overwhelming, but this is just something, this is a good reminder here. A lot of times I might not cut in for that area because it's more rural. If it was during the week or something, we've already had a bunch of severe storms. I just posted about it on Facebook, Twitter, /X there, you would just see the information. It wouldn't be enough population to be concerned about it being a holiday weekend. It just, worries me that, we could have a tragedy in the water here. The wind could pick something up, even and flip something. We've already had some tragedies, toward the water as we're looking at things here, toward the region. So you just got to be very mindful here. And watch out for, the beach there too, because you're trying to cool off. I mean, if there's lightning around, obviously, that's really dangerous. But you also got to watch out for rip currents. This is the type of weekend where you could have problems here. The water, if you're, whether they're, all that strong or not. Sometimes folks from out of state don't realize, the veracity here of the water and how dangerous things can be. Even if they're not, just something that's that overwhelming here on a scale, it's just something that could catch folks off guard. So this is not that impressive of a severe storm in a traditional sense, but I just need to, with rain chance, we didn't have it all that high to begin with here, and this is kind of popping up as a scrub back and go forward here. I want to make sure folks understand that, lightning is, as Weather Service mentions all the time, one of the nation's leading killers here, tragically, and we honestly haven't had, high number of that yet this year in the country. The numbers have been going down over the year, it would seem, going down in Florida. Florida is such a dangerous place for this, but, one lightning strike, cloud of the ground, and it could be something where there's some serious injuries involved or worse. So you just got to be very mindful of that here this afternoon as you're looking. And again, we don't, necessarily have a situation where we're on a lot of times and there's lightning over a waterway. You don't have a warning, so there's not really justification for me to be on. So you gotta be weather smart here as we're looking at things in toward the weather center. You gotta be weather smart, weather aware here, whether there's warnings in play or not, as we're tracking things. I know, so important here as we're dealing with the situation. You just got to be mindful of what could happen. Now, speaking of being mindful for what could happen, we don't have the alert logo up here, and I'm hoping we can stay that way with this using our flag logo Memorial Day weekend. At least we're not tracking anything in the tropics like we were in 2012 with Tropical Storm Beryl headed our way. That was 13 years ago, but that's hard to believe it's that long ago. But I was getting ready to go to orientation at FSU, but I digress there as we continue to look at things here. We continue to give you guys the very latest on the situation. We do have to watch here. We do have to watch toward Oklahoma because we may have to go back to a red logo for a national threat. Local threat is not enough for a red logo here. national threat. I don't think we're going to turn it red, even if something really just evolves in the moment here on the fly. But we have an enhanced risk around Oklahoma City. We have an enhanced risk of severe weather around Moore, kind of, as we're looking there. Not Norman, actually, but that doesn't necessarily matter. But some of this, is for hail here. Now, some of it's also for tornado, as we're tracking here. There's not, as far as I can see, a hatch area for a tornado, but there is for hail. Now, with tornadoes in Oklahoma, though, it happens over the years, this time of year in May. Things, even in the night, last night, we were seeing quite a few warnings just really develop late in the night. They weren't necessarily overwhelming from what I saw, but they were all getting up there. We were getting some big hail with those storms. This is a bigger risk, and this is a 10% tornado risk here, so I wouldn't discount that we could get a strong tornado in here, even if there's not a formal risk for it. You have 2 tornadoes. See, they just canceled our severe thunderstorm warning for Flagler, so we don't have any more formal warnings in our area. So we'll probably be wrapping it soon. But while we're on the air, I want to talk about this because, we didn't have a formal update late Thursday. We're off then. We've been so busy with the weather situation, but I need to make sure folks are weather aware here in Oklahoma. As we're tracking things, I'm kind of concerned because the threat keeps getting higher and higher in general out there, even though it's not, a hatch theory, meaning technically strong tornadoes are not really likely. This is a pretty high tornado risk, and things that's happen in Oklahoma, boundaries get involved, the model, and so in the case, it could cause something to really spin up there, in a spot. I mean, we've had 10% really terribly, become, disastrous here. It was a hatch 10%, I'm pretty sure, but the Moore tornado in 2013, the last EF5 in the country, happened in a 10% tornado risk. It was a hatch one, though, meaning, as far as I remember, meaning that strong tornadoes were, more likely. It's not saying that here. I just, urge you guys. I mean, we could have, some significant hail even around Oklahoma City, Moore, Norman there. There's some wind risk, sure, but tornado and hail, I mean, you see even to Tulsa for the hail. And anywhere in that region, just got to pay attention because the models have struggled lately, to be quite honest, in the meteorology community. I just, hopefully things, start to downtick here. They've been really upticking now, up trending here over the last, little bit with this. So right now the model guidance, this is 3 o'clock Central, 4 o'clock Central. Again, as we're looking here, I don't want folks caught off guard in these tornado vulnerable areas. I'm sure there'll be a tornado watch later on toward the metro there. Sometimes things in a small scale there, it could be in a high population zone too, can just all of a sudden start spinning rapidly. We're talking about 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock Central. You don't see much for a while, so you think, okay, maybe we'll be okay, but then eventually things just break open here. 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Central, 11 o'clock now. Getting later and later in the model guidance, but those have hooks on them. Those could be tornado-producing storms. Could be, one somewhere in the vicinity of Edmond. You never know. And another one there, Calumet, now Reno. But again, it's not going to be those precise areas necessarily. But we got to really pay attention here. Now, let me check something real quick. I don't follow the NBA enough, but I know Oklahoma City's in the playoffs. Okay, they're playing at Minnesota tonight on ABC. So they're not at home, but there's probably a lot of watch parties there in the conference finals. And that could also get programs interrupted there too, which, oh boy, that'll be a mess if they interrupt a game there, like that. But they'll have to, at least do a double box. If there's any tornado warnings in their area, KOCO5 there in Oklahoma City. And there's other ways to watch. Again, not, too big into the NBA, but like in other sports, like college basketball and college baseball, college football, the NFL to some degree. But, as we're looking here, there's other ways on ESPN's website. If they have to cut in there, and they might even put it on like BTV, the alternative channel 5.2 maybe. Yeah, I may have that right. I don't know, but they might have that option there. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But let's see here. I think it's probably on ESPN Plus. Let me look. If it's on ABC, it might be something different. Might just be ESPN3, but just kind of want to make sure folks are aware of it, because that's an unusual type of scenario, having to interrupt a pro sport team deep into the playoffs like that. But the weather would justify, because sometimes they just won't, interrupt if it's, something like that. But there's only one main channel associated with them, so they've already kind of been close to having to do that this year, but that could be a real conundrum there as we're looking later tonight. Okay, so it looks like the broadcast there that would be on ESPN3 in Spanish, on ESPN3 in English, ESPN3 above the rim, and then there'll be an alternative broadcast that can be watched on ESPN News on cable called an Insight Cast. I can just already see it right now. If we get stuff like this to develop here, it could be near the end of the game even, but, they'll jump on even if it's, I'll back it up a little. Because maybe we have a tornado warning out here north of Weatherford. It's only, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, and that's, late in the game, give or take, at least past halftime. And then, oh boy, I can just see the complaints coming in now, to be quite honest, and they have to be on the air. It's their FCC obligation. It's the obligation to the viewership there in that area. So, because as we've seen, not saying it'll happen here, but as we've seen toward, like, Kentucky, the tragedy that happened there toward East Kentucky, last Friday. They were on the air, the stations. They were given, as much warning as they could. I mean, Somerset to London, especially in Laurel County, an absolute tragedy. They were on the air. It was good morning for we were on. I mean, we were telling you guys. I mean, I think everybody, in the meteorology community was just hitting this hard for a while. Coming toward London there, it could be tragic, and sadly, a lot of folks there, lost their life right there around the airport, from what I understand. And we were talking about that for a while, over and over again, coming over toward that area there. And just sadly, the message, because it was so late at night, I would assume, just didn't get out there. That's not an area that really has strong tornadoes in it for, like what happened there. That's why, and especially when people are watching TV, that's why TV is so important. One extra person seeing it, being able to get out of a mobile home or something and take into a shelter in a better spot, is one life saved, and that's what it's all about. I mean, quite honestly, you can interrupt the game and, you get all these complaints, but if you get, one person's life saved because of being on the air, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, and that's what could end up being the case there tonight. Even if you have, hundreds, maybe hundreds of thousands of people upset about it being interrupted. Their NBA game tonight in the playoffs, conference finals, Oklahoma City against Minnesota. If you have one person that, has their life saved because of this, you did the right thing. Even if you don't have anybody, technically, if it wasn't quite that bad, you still did the right thing by warning the folks of the danger. So that's why this is so important. But the reason we came in here with a local severe thunderstorm warning, that broke up here as we were looking there toward the Crescent Lake area there. So that's real good news as we're tracking things. Still some strong accents. Still be careful. Don't get me wrong. There's lightning in here still. Whenever thunderstorms go indoors, it's not something necessarily, you're going to see break-ins on TV in a lot of cases. I know some of them in the Orlando market can be a little more aggressive about it, and definitely can be warranted there as we're looking here towards some of these severe thunderstorm warnings, at points down there. There are tons up in there toward the southeast part of that Orlando television market here. As we're tracking things around Rockledge, Interstate 95, east of Holopah there, that area there. I know Holopah right on the edge, maybe just outside of that warning really, but then you have Kenansville there, and they're just outside of that severe thunderstorm warning. Let me see if there's any tornado possible tags on these. I don't see it on the top one. How about the second one? It's just Ensign 60 on the winds there. Ensign 60, and then, yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the storyline there Okay, this new warning just got issued just south of our viewing area by the Melbourne office. As we're tracking things, as we're watching things here. This is a severe thunderstorm warning for Lake and Volusia counties there until 5 o'clock at 4:22. A severe thunderstorm was located near DeLand Airport, or near DeLand, moving pretty much nowhere, nearly stationary. 60-mile-an-hour wind gust and quarter-size hail. Deltona, Daytona Beach, DeLand, Orange City, and Lake Helen. As we're looking at things there, you see Pearson and Saleville there. That's that type of area, those communities. The Crescent City's in our area, of course. So I'll go and remind you guys of our viewing area if you're new to the stream here. Our 62 counties that we're always on for when there's tornado warning storms moving through, or on the severe thunderstorm warnings as well, flash flood warnings and the like, and of course hurricane coverage. I mean, tropical storm coverage, but not saying anything that's going to be, the case coming up, anytime soon, but as we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things, it's always important to stay on top of the weather situations. So it's very warm out there. I mean, we were cool in our, area here east of Stark, more rural this morning. I mean, got down to 61 degrees, but it's 95 degrees now. The humidity is only 39%, and that, can act for now to kind of limit some of this convexity. You see where I'm starting, instability is really lacking. So I don't know if we'll even get that much up here in terms of thunderstorm action today. Tomorrow might be a different story, though. We have stuff coming in from the northwest. You see a bunch of severe thunderstorm warnings out there northwest of Jackson, Mississippi. There's a severe thunderstorm watch in play over there. Probably again going to get a tornado watch for the OKC Metro here. So look toward prime time there. At least there's not a game there in that regard. There's Oklahoma softball, but that's probably about to be over. They're winning really big. As I was looking at the score just a little while ago. But severe thunderstorm watch here in Colorado as well. It's southeast of Denver. Got a storm there that looks like I probably need a warning there. As we're looking there. Just continuing to watch the weather map. I'll continue to watch the weather map. These are some hail producers potentially there. May not be quite as bad as it shows on here, but could be inch there around Crow's Bluff. Could be an inch or so, maybe slightly more just northeast of DeLand. And they're not really moving that much. Maybe, I know some of this stuff looks like it wants to drift a little bit east. I have to be careful saying the word move. I mean, look at all this rain though. East of Crescent City last hour, about 2 inches in some of those purples. As I'm looking here, I'm trying to go further back. But as we go ahead and continue to watch this just a little bit longer, let me see the forecast for tomorrow locally. So it's a holiday weekend. It's Memorial Day weekend. And, we just got to be continuing to watch the weather here. We just got to continue to watch the weather here as things transpire, as things evolve, as things move along here into toward the future. So this is like 8 o'clock tonight. I don't see that much lightning in the morning. I'm keeping that up because, just to kind of keep an eye on the situation. But you see some stuff maybe, let me back this up just a little bit. Maybe some stuff in southeast Alabama that we'll have to watch. There's an advisory on this side here. Or, what was Geneva County? Okay. Outside of our area with Tallahassee's weather service jurisdiction. But let me take some of this back off. I will take the lightning off. Let's keep the current warning up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and progress this. So on 18Z, so let's go to, we'll go through the night. There shouldn't be too much during the night around here. I'm skipping through that pretty quick. This is, more traditional summertime, some degree, not totally, but. So we start just around noon tomorrow. Don't see that much over land. But eventually, 4 o'clock, look at that, right around 995 on this, simulation. That could even be, that looks like it wants to rotate there. You can only get stuff right along the coast to rotate it if you get it. Shifting of the winds there with the sea breeze and the like. But that's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. That's really showing a lot more toward the east than what I see earlier on. These will keep changing. Some of it was showing it further west earlier. That's 7 o'clock. That's a lot of, convection there. And you see some more popping in later. But even over Georgia toward midnight, that's interesting to say the least there. You don't necessarily see that all that much there in this pattern. And then into toward Monday, though, earlier on, not too much. But then that's 2 o'clock as far as it goes out on Monday afternoon. So Again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on the weather situation. It's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. I want to pull up the model. It's going to be rainfall. 6 hours for tomorrow. Seeing a couple inches, around the I-95 corridor, maybe. Doesn't mean that's exactly what's going to happen. Again, the models have been struggling here lately. I will preface it with that as we're looking at things and tracking things here toward the weather center. So, again, just continuing to give you guys the latest. It's a little bit longer here as the situation does evolve. You see all these warnings in Mississippi there. Folks may be traveling. I know cloudy.com/radar can give you an interactive look at things. Doesn't necessarily see the warnings, but you can get an idea of what some thunderstorm action is. Whenever thunder roars, you got to go indoors. And a pretty big, cool down toward North Alabama and North Georgia compared to other spots, upper 60s or mid 60s even up that way this afternoon. We'll look at things. There is some more cloud cover up that way, but still, you can kind of see some shifting winds as we go ahead and continue to give you guys the latest here. If there's any questions or comments here. Okay, I see Linda, viewer named Linda Burt here on YouTube, has a question here about the Tulsa area. So let me go ahead and show you guys that. Let me go ahead and show you guys that on the model then. So, okay, so you see the enhanced risk here of severe weather. That does include Tulsa. As we're looking ahead, there could be some flooding that really comes into play. I know you had a nasty round of storms this morning. Some different reports coming on out there as we were looking toward that area in northeast Oklahoma. Give or take around sunrise, I believe. As I was looking back at some of the information, I was following some of it in real time, but didn't have, tornado warnings up there, so I wasn't keeping a really close eye on it there. But just kind of looking through some of that, I want to go ahead and kind of pull in some other information. So tornado risk is you're on the edge of the 5% around Tulsa. Could get a tornado watch up there. If not a tornado watch, you'll probably have a thunderstorm watch later on tonight. As we're tracking things, there's a wind risk there, and then the hail risk. That's the most concerning because that could be some bigger hail that holds together. In theory, it's a little bit, interesting in a way. It's not always how it shapes up, but okay, this is gonna be. Let me switch this over to a different mode. Let me go ahead and I'll put the model guidance on. So this is 6 o'clock Central Time here tonight. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 p.m. With the forecast model, the HRRR. It could come in a little earlier than this. I know last night the models were a little bit, they're more developed than they were showing. So some stuff did come in earlier than maybe like, let's say 5 a.m. Central, but that's when it probably started to escalate around that time. You can see here, this is 11 p.m. tonight, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. It didn't show a whole bunch there for a while. We'll see, stuff could be displaced a little bit. There's a enhanced risk, so I suspect, there'll be warnings around. The tornado threat's a little higher toward Oklahoma City and westward, though, but as we're looking here, you still got to remember weather awareness is tomorrow morning around 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Central there, 11. You see a lot in the morning, maybe. So unfortunately, that could, impact folks trying to head out for church and the like. Just be very careful, with the warnings and the like. If there's tornado warnings, obviously, or some of that higher end severe thunderstorm warnings, and you probably have to stay in there. But just have to just try to time things between the storms if you can. Depending on what your plans are, whether it's that or brunch or both. As we're looking here toward the lunch hour, 1 o'clock, you see, cleared out in the afternoon according to this, but then we see some more building bad. This is tomorrow evening here. according to this model. And you see some stuff, it seemed like it went to a little south, but you just never know here. And you see some more moisture. That could be a flooding problem. There's a flood watch in play there. Let me get the details on that. This gets into Monday here, maybe for the Memorial Day plans for, remembrances. Looks like a little bit better, but, there could be some roads here that do suffer some, heavy downpours here that could lead to some flooding. The Weather Service in Tulsa showing 4 to 6 inches of rain, but additional, top of what they already saw this morning, like between, like now and into that Monday. So significant flood threat into Monday there. Flood watch through 7 p.m. on Monday there as we're looking toward areas like Tulsa. So that could be one of the bigger threats if things set up the wrong way there, toward Tulsa County there and all those surrounding counties there. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things there, like Okfuskee and Okmulgee and, Rogers County, Mays County, Pawnee County, and the like. So again, just have to be very mindful here of that as we're looking there toward northeast Oklahoma. Let me see how much rain they got this morning, because I can go back 12 hours on here. Quite a bit, 2.5 inches on the estimates here between, especially Tulsa and Owasso there. As we're looking on about 3 inches showing up in this spot. I know I zoomed in too tight, but southwest of Turley, south a little bit more of Speary there, as we're looking at things. So again, just trying to see what's going on there toward that area. Got to pay attention. The bigger threat, though, for tornadoes would be from around Oklahoma City, that interstate corridor there, obviously, as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things. We're going to be paying attention to those. Can always help to kind of give you a geographic divide. We're talking about I-35 westward, would be where you have the bigger tornado threat generally. Doesn't mean it's going to set up that way, but that's what the model guidance would indicate, because we already have some nasty parameters here for tornadoes. There's not anything in this. We had these last night too, though. I will say they were really, stuff developed right over them when it didn't look like maybe it would for a little bit, longer. Just developed right on over them. We have over 5 on the tornado parameters here. These can move around, of course, but then the supercell composite, we are seeing, my color table only goes to 16. We have 31. So these storms definitely, could have that supercell structure, which means hail, as indicated by the risk. But the tornado threat is definitely big enough here, to Watonga's way, Weatherford's way, give or take. You see areas there, Chickasha and the like. So, El Reno, Calumet, Minco, that area there. We'll have to pay attention. Hopefully things don't escalate enough for me to have to come on, but they very well could, for that out there. The national threat, of course, those local stations will be covering it, but if it really starts to escalate, then we'll have to do some cut-ins here on all the different platforms to give you guys the very latest here on what's going on. So there's all your different platforms, but locally, we don't have any warnings for the moment. You have a pretty, heavy thunderstorm, I would say, and Flagler with the hail threat's really gone down with it. There's a little bit of lightning, so whenever thunder roared, you got to go indoors still. Bunnell, west of Bunnell there, you're taking, the road to the beach from Palatka to Flagler. And we got some storminess there in between. You have quite a bit of, storminess in Volusia County there. Again, whenever thunder roars, you don't need a warning for it. You don't need an advisory for it. As we get in the next few months here, you just got to know it as a Floridian or as a Georgian even, or wherever you are, but especially those, areas that we're, responsible for per se. You just got to know it. You don't have to have an alert. You just, you're one, clap of thunder, or seeing that light in the distance means it's time to get inside. Time to, hunker down here. We got to wait 30 minutes in theory until the next, clap of thunder, and if you don't hear another one, then it's safe to go back out. That's, the general rule of thumb there. So you got to start thinking about that this time of year. We're not going to be on the air, obviously, for, there'll be many thunderstorms here that are not technically strong or severe, but they can still be deadly because of that cloud-to-ground lightning. So dangerous. You know, we have a flood advisory, by the way, for Flagler till 6:30, portions of that county now. So let me go back to the north. It's not something we have to stay on for or anything, but some areas there could end up with 3.5 inches of rain, so some flooding there possible in mainly rural areas of the indicated county. As we're continuing to track this and continue to check this here this afternoon, you know, we'll just continue here to look at things, continue to give you guys the very latest here on this inclement situation. So again, Memorial Day weekend, you know, it can be deadly on the roads, tragically, as we're looking at things, you know, as we're looking at the situation, you know, but it can also be deadly because of the weather, whether it's, you know, in our area, wind. Generally, it's not hail, but you still gotta be careful with that. Whether it's wind flipping a boat or the lightning, and then out toward Oklahoma, it could be a tornado. It could just be slick road, even a car hydroplanes, and then somebody could get seriously injured or worse. You know, so whether it's, you know, weather related or not, things can be deadly. You know, as we're looking between Memorial Day and Labor Day, you know, especially for young people, there's studies that show, you know, how dangerous it can be. As we're looking here, as we're tracking things that in toward the weather center and not in the weather center, just on the road, just as, you know, in traffic in general. You know, as we're looking at the scenario, as we're down with it, you know, you just got to be aware. Just got to be aware. You just got to be paying attention, obviously. I know, it's always important to monitor things. So again, watching these are not that far from our area. Just look here to see if that's kind of drifting north. It looks like it is. Quite honestly, that looks like it's drifting north. It might impact Flagler. Did they give a new movement on this? They're saying very little movement on a storm west of the land, but the other storm is moving northeast at 5 miles an hour. There's multiple, you know, potential severe storms. The northern one is one that, you know, could start heading toward our area here as we look ahead, it would seem. So 5 miles an hour, that's not, you know, obviously very fast, but let's look at it then. You know, you see how little that movement is. Let me go ahead and see here. I mean, we'll just go. Let me go ahead. I'm on this source here. I'm tracking things and I'm monitoring things, obviously. I'm going to pull this in, so. Yeah, I mean, in theory, it could break up quite a bit, but still have some lightning with it before it gets into our area. And when it gets into our area, I'll go ahead and take off our information for a second. I just show you that's 5 miles from the Flagler line. You know, you say, oh, well, maybe we should stay on the air and wait for a warning to get issued for Flagler. You know, and sometimes they would, but the thing is, it's only moving 5 miles an hour, so that'd be another hour. So I don't think we need to stick with this. Hopefully it'll break up. A lot of times these will before they, you know, make it, you know, that far here. And really, it's not just that far in mileage, it's that far in the timeline, is what I mean. So again, but we'll watch it, obviously, and post and or come on as needed. I know, depending on where that is, that's pretty rural southern Flagler there. Depends on if it's, you know, if it's at the coast, you know, that's something you have to be a little more concerned with there. But, you know, we won't necessarily be back on with the severe thunderstorm warning if it's a more rural area, it's more marginal. But we'll definitely play it by ear here as we continue to track things throughout the day. And, you know, as we look ahead here, you know, the cover of the storms is not that much. But we had that warning that we had to jump in for here because, you know, so many folks will be getting caught off guard on Crescent Lake. It's Memorial Day weekend. People are out on the water potentially. You see Marion County, there's lightning here. We need the rain, but we don't want lightning around. That can, you know, be a problem here. Spark fire, if you rain over that is one thing, but to watch out for, you know, lightning out ahead and not getting much rain. That can be an issue. Some of these grounds are still dry, pretty dry. As you see this thunderstorm accident in Flagler, but this is a lot more impressive here west of Daytona Beach. as we're looking at things in Volusia County, just north of the interstate there, the I-4 corridor, you have areas there in Daytona and like I-95 and where I-4 come together. And we're talking about with this storm to the north of that, northwest of that, really, moving toward the north and east. And there's a chance, I say that I showed you guys in terms of the 5 miles from the county line. But if this drips over here a little bit further east, it's gonna be more than 5 miles because of the way that it may never really make it into our area, depending on how it sets up. I think it, if it held together, it probably would clip it. But I mean, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here on other source because as I go ahead and flip it over, you can see that's actually about 18 miles if it kept going more, further east there, because a lot of that's Volusia County, if you're not familiar with the geography of Florida. So, we cover Flagler with, the enhanced coverage, obviously, our 62 counties, but this is the Flagler line. This is where the Jacksonville office has responsibility. The north of this and to the south of this is the Melbourne Weather Service office. But, I know Flagler does kind of get covered by Jacksonville and Orlando TV stations, though, depending on which ones. I know Jacksonville, for instance, First Coast News and WJXT, I think, kind of because of them being on the air so much, over the years, they cover Flagler, but WJX, CBS, and then WFOX Fox, they really don't because a little bit newer to things. And then, Orlando kind of took that responsibility a little bit more, but as we're kind of looking at things. But yeah, so that's where the line is. So see, I mean, I know it's gonna, take that off, but that's 10 miles there. The gap there as you're looking. This is Volusia. This is Flagler. I know it's a little bit weird, but as we're looking here, though, northeast of the Leon Springs, that's a pretty, hefty storm with a hail potential. I don't know. The wind potential didn't look overwhelming there. I need to put the other information on. Hail, just 40% chance of severe, but that's off the Jacksonville radar. Let's see what the Melbourne radar says. It says 30, so that's maybe, signs it's isn't as bad, as it could be, but again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here. Again, that's just that side of our area, though, so we're not going to stick with it. I think it is weakening some based on the algorithm. We have some news of it. Well, let me see, this may not be new. Okay, it's not new, but it just had a whole bunch of the others disappear, so that's why that one's easier to see now. But as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here, you can see intercell rain in some areas north of Daytona, but also, the darker purples, 2 inches. So it varies a lot here in this type of pattern for sure. Our temperatures here are toasty now. For those with interest, like in FSU baseball, they're going to be taking on North Carolina soon in the ACC semifinals in baseball. It's not toasty that much up there. As we're looking at things in the Durham area, 72 degrees there in that vicinity. So, I mean, the heat index, not really a factor because the humidity is at 35%, for instance, dew point at 43. So, it's, warm because of the sun in some ways, but not that warm. I mean, it's pretty nice, really, as we're looking at things up that way. So, hopefully my nose can win that one there, but as we go ahead and see if there's any more questions or comments before I wrap it up. See a few more on YouTube here about the Tulsa area. I know I don't, around Tulsa, I don't think there'd be a lot of tornadoes. I think there could be 1 or 2, in that vicinity, but I don't think it'd be an outbreak up there. Based on the latest guidance, things have been a little bit harder to nail down. This is a tough pattern. Wish we had a little more data, but in the meteorology community. But as we're looking here off toward the west there, toward Oklahoma City, that could be something where you might be able to call a tornado outbreak in that TV market, that vicinity. So hopefully that kind of helps you out there. And I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up since we don't have any local warnings right now. Most areas not getting storms, so just about staying cool, in these warmer conditions here. Hot. It's not just warm. This is downright hot. up here. I mean, you see some of these heat index values in the triple digits. I mean, our heat index 102 where I'm at East Historical on my weather station. So 90, goodness, wow, it's really jumped. 97 now. East Historical, that might be the hottest. I think right now, even though the humidity is pretty low, I think 97. I'll put the regular on the screen, but my air temperature is 97 now here east of Stark. Trying to dip back 96.5 now. It's 96.6 a second ago. So, you know, but I think that might have been the hottest we've been all year. 97 is what that rounds to, obviously. So, again, that's kind of storyline there as we're tracking things, as we're monitoring things. I know you have warnings downstate, like around Port St. Lucie there. They had some storms down in east, well, really southeast Florida yesterday, but Port St. Lucie, severe thunderstorm warning to about 5:30. And so we're looking down that way. We have this warning in the north of Orlando. We have stuff we'll be watching from the west, and you know, watching tomorrow, watching tonight though, for Oklahoma. But tomorrow we'll be watching some of our counties or locally as well. There's a risk in play, marginal. You know, we have to watch out for some wind and some hail. So again, just have to continue to be watching all that here on the Doppler radar technology. I know tomorrow, you know, I'll be watching Oklahoma again for severe weather. Enhanced risk tomorrow, Oklahoma City, Norman, Wichita Falls, and Texas, and slight for Tulsa, but tornado risk higher Oklahoma City and west, and wind is higher. That's the west of Oklahoma City. Hail, you know, the significant threat goes to about Tulsa and west on that Sunday. And then on Monday, the risk kind of sinks south more into Texas. It's higher. Dallas, Waco, Abilene on Memorial Day, but then still having to watch, you know, Oklahoma and then all the way east, you know, across with the marginal risk in areas of, you know, our viewing circle. So that's going to do it for now. Thanks so much for tuning in, trusting me. I'll be back here as warranted, whether it's for local or national. And of course, I'll be posting there on the different sources there for any of the local alerts. If I don't need to pop in, we'll still post the bad on if there, you know, severe thunderstorm warnings that aren't overwhelming or, you know, more or less, you know, populated areas per se. I will post in about them still, flash flood warnings and the like on Facebook there and then Twitter/X. So stay safe on this holiday weekend. I'll be back here as warranted. Also, just one note here. Next Thursday night at 10 p.m. we'll have our annual hurricane special. Getting ready for that 2025 season. So next Thursday, when I say next Thursday, I mean, you know, less than a week away now on that 29th there at 10 p.m. on all the different platforms. We'll have our late Tuesday, early Wednesday update coming up too. But next Thursday night, in lieu of our normal update, we'll have a hurricane special for the Atlantic hurricane season 2025, Thursday at 10 p.m. So make sure you tune in and watch that. But for now, try to enjoy that day. Stay safe.